7 years ago, on a storm-heavy Thursday morning in Manhattan, a woman stood frozen before a door that could rewrite her entire destiny. Her name was Iman, a Black American woman whose brilliance had carried her from the mailroom to the executive floor of Breyers Industries. And beyond that door waited the man who had changed everything, Jeremy Breyers, the powerful young CEO, a white billionaire whose world was a universe away from hers. She repeated their names in her mind like a prayer or a warning, knowing once she stepped through that door, nothing, absolutely nothing, would go back to the way it was. Iman tightened her grip on the pregnancy test, hidden inside her trembling hand. That tiny plastic stick felt heavier than the building she stood in, heavier than the entire corporate empire whose name gleamed on the brass plaque beside the door. Jeremy Breyers, Chief Executive Officer. The hallway was quiet, too quiet. Quiet enough that she could hear her own heart racing, pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She inhaled deeply, hoping courage might come with the air. It didn't. For 18 months. She and Jeremy had lived a secret built of stolen kisses behind closed doors, weekend getaways to his mountain cabin, promises whispered against her skin in the dark. He had made her believe they had a future, a fragile, shimmering future full of hope. He had looked at her like she ruined him in the best way, like loving her was dangerous and irresistible all at once. But now she was terrified. It wasn't the pregnancy that scared her. It was the possibility, no. The risk that she meant nothing more to him than the shadows they'd hidden in. Before fear could chain her to the carpet, she knocked. "Come in." Jeremy's voice called out, firm, confident, the tone of a man who controlled markets, negotiations, and entire boardrooms. Iman pushed the door open. Jeremy looked up from the financial report spread across his desk. A smile tugged at the corner of his lips, the kind of smile that once made her knees weak, that once made the world feel safe. "There you are," he said softly. "Close the door. I've been thinking about you all morning." Normally those words would have turned her spine to liquid, but today they landed differently, like a hand reaching for her in the dark. Only she wasn't sure whether it would pull her closer or push her away forever. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Her palms were sweating. Her throat felt tight. "Jeremy," she whispered, "I need to tell you something." The smile faded. He leaned back in his chair, studying her like he could see the truth trembling beneath her skin. "What's wrong?" he asked. "You look pale." "Sit down." She didn't sit. She couldn't. "This can't wait." Jeremy straightened, an instinctive reaction from a man used to danger arriving in paperwork and hostile takeovers. His eyes sharpened. "Iman, what is it?" Her fingers uncurled, and she placed the pregnancy test on the polished mahogany desk between them. "I'm pregnant." Silence exploded through the room. Jeremy's expression froze completely, utterly froze. The warm brown eyes she'd fallen for turned unreadable, glassy, cold. He stared at the test like it was a weapon pointed at him. Iman swallowed hard, her voice shaking. "It's ours." "I'm sure." He stood so fast, his chair rolled back into the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. For a wild moment, she thought the glass might crack. "How convenient," he said, voice dripping with disbelief, so sharp it pierced her like a blade. The secretary turns up pregnant. Do you know how cliché that sounds? She flinched. Jeremy, don't do this. Please, don't do what he snapped. Fall for some pathetic trap. Her chest tightened. It physically hurt. Trap, she whispered. After everything. After all the nights. That was fun. Jeremy cut in, but it was never serious. You knew that. No, she said, shaking her head. We both knew it was more. More. Jeremy laughed, but there was no humor in it. Did you actually think I would bring you into my world? Introduce you to my father? Present you to shareholders as what Mrs. Briars? Are you out of your mind? Her stomach twisted, her vision blurred. You told me you loved me, she whispered. He scoffed. I said what I needed to say. You were good in bed. That's all this was. Her heart cracked open. No, she whispered again, refusing to believe that 18 months of tenderness, gentleness, and whispered dreams were lies. You don't mean that. He turned away from her, walking toward his desk with the confidence of a man erasing a file from a database. You need to go, he said coldly. Right now. Iman took a shaky step forward. Jeremy, please, listen to me. I never wanted anything from you, except honesty. Oh, I'll give you honesty, he said sharply, pressing the intercom button on his phone. Security to my office, Jeremy, she cried, panic clawing up her throat. Stop. Please, what he snapped. Should I let you stay? Should I let you ruin everything I've worked for? I won't let anyone play games with me. Not you. Not this. This is our baby, she whispered, tears gathering. No, he said icily. There is no our. Find someone else to pin this on. The office door opened, and 2 security guards stepped in. Escort Ms. Turner out of the building, Jeremy ordered. She no longer works here. Iman gasped. You're firing me. I'm removing a problem, he said. Try to contact me again, and I'll have you arrested. The guards approached, not unkind, but firm. Iman's eyes stung as she looked at Jeremy one last time, hoping for a flicker of humanity. A crack in the mask. Nothing. Jeremy Briars kept his gaze glued to his computer screen, typing, his jaw tight, his shoulders rigid as if she no longer existed, as if their child didn't exist, as if the last 18 months had been smoke and mirrors. Iman allowed the guards to lead her out. She refused to let them touch her. She refused to let the curious glances from the outer office break her. She lifted her chin, shoulders back, walking with the dignity he tried to rip away from her. But when the elevator doors closed, sealing her away from the man she had loved, the tears came. Silent. Violent. In her purse. The pregnancy test shifted. Unbreakable proof of love she thought was real proof of a baby who would soon become the center of her universe. She placed a protective hand over her stomach. He may not want you, she whispered, voice trembling but fierce. But I do, and I'll love you enough for both of us. The elevator dinged. Her new life dark, uncertain. Terrifying waited on the other side. Iman stepped out. A storm was coming. But so was a miracle. If you're still here and want the next chapter of this intense love and betrayal story, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss part 2. The alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. Its shrill cry slicing through the tiny one-bedroom apartment like a blade. For a few precious seconds, Iman didn't move. She lay there, listening to the gentle breathing of her son curled beside her. Ben, her bright-eyed 7-year-old miracle born from heartbreak, raised through struggle, loved beyond measure. The world outside their window was still dark, the city's hum distant and muted. She exhaled, long and weary, and forced herself to rise before the exhaustion anchoring her to the mattress could win. Her feet hit the cold floor. The boards creaked, a reminder of the life she lived now, far from marble offices and luxury cars. But she didn't regret her choice. Not anymore. Sacrifice had built this home. Love filled it. Iman tiptoed around their cramped apartment, every sound magnified by the thin walls. The neighbors were waking too. A baby cried. A couple argued softly in another language. A door slammed. Poverty was loud, even in silence. She tied her hair back, splashed cold water on her face, and started the ancient coffee maker. While it sputtered, she stared at the stack of bills on the kitchen table. Rent, utilities, groceries, medicine, school supplies. The numbers never added up. She inhaled deeply. She couldn't fall apart. Not today. Not ever. At 5:15, she kissed Ben's forehead and slipped out the door. Job number 1, cleaning corporate offices before executives arrived. The irony was never lost on her. She wiped fingerprints off glossy conference tables just like the ones she once sat at. She emptied trash bins filled with disposable luxury she could never afford. And when she cleaned the corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, she would not let herself think of the door she was thrown out of 7 years ago. She refused to give pain-free rent in her mind. By 9:00, she rushed to job number 2, waiting tables at Riverside Diner. The lunch rush meant broken dishes, spilled coffee, and customers who thought kindness was optional. But tips helped. Tips bought shoes. Shoes meant Ben had something decent to wear. When Mr. Washington, an elderly regular, asked, "And how's that brilliant boy of yours today?" she smiled with the pride that held her together. At 2:30 came job number 3, stocking shelves at Metro Grocery, where the manager flirted too much and the pay was too little. But she endured because she had to. When the sun finally set, she hurried home through streets that weren't safe, but were all she could afford. She opened her door and smelled burning. "Ben," she called. His small voice answered from the kitchen, trembling. "I tried to cook for you, Mama. I wanted to help." The pot of macaroni was scorched beyond recognition. Cheese splattered across the stove. Ben stood there, cheeks flushed, tiny hands clutching a wooden spoon like a crime weapon. Her heart squeezed. "Baby." She knelt, pulling him close. "You're 7. You don't have to take care of me, but you're always tired." Iman kissed his forehead. "You take care of me just by being you." They made sandwiches instead. Ben told her about space books he borrowed from the library, a new math game he mastered, and how Tommy at school said every kid had a dad somewhere. Then came the question she'd been dodging for years. "Mama, why don't I have a daddy?" Iman froze. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. "There are all kinds of families," she whispered carefully. Some have one parent. Some have two. Some have grandparents or aunts or... But what about mine? Ben insisted. What about my daddy? Her throat tightened. Your daddy wasn't ready to be a daddy. Ben absorbed that. His eyes the same shape and color as Jeremy's, filled with confusion. Will he be ready someday? Iman felt her chest crack open. I don't know, baby. Ben nodded slowly, accepting it for now. Children believed love could heal anything. Iman wished she could believe that too. That night, she lay awake while her son slept peacefully beside her. She allowed her heart 5 minutes of weakness. 5 minutes to imagine what life might have been if Jeremy had chosen love over fear. And just when the ache grew unbearable, her phone buzzed. A text from Kesha, her best friend girl. Your ex-boss is getting married this weekend. A big society wedding. Makes me sick. Iman stared at the message until the letters blurred. Of course he was getting married. To someone perfect, someone wealthy, someone acceptable, someone who wasn't her. She set the phone down, fighting the old wound reopening inside her. But she didn't know that at that exact moment. In the dark of their tiny apartment, a new storm was quietly forming, one her son would walk straight into the next morning. Because the next day, Ben would see that same message, and he would decide to find the father he had never known. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. By Saturday morning, the city was celebrating a story that had nothing to do with Iman or her son, but everything to do with the ghosts she tried to bury. Headlines shouted about the society wedding of the year, Jeremy Briers marrying heiress Tula Kensington. The Plaza Hotel had been transformed into a cathedral of white roses, gold-trimmed archways, crystal chandeliers, and imported orchids that cost more than a year of Iman's rent. But she didn't know any of that yet. Ben did. He saw the details when her phone buzzed with a news alert while she was in the shower. The photo displayed Jeremy in a tailored suit, smiling next to Tula, who looked like the world's idea of perfection: sleek blonde curls, designer gown, flawless everything. Ben stared at the screen until his chest tightened. He whispered to himself, "That's him. That's my dad." He didn't understand the adult weight behind decisions. Betrayal, power, or fear. All he saw was a man who looked like him, a man who had a family that wasn't his, a man he believed should have been showing up at his school plays, teaching him how to throw a baseball, or helping him build the rocket ship he had dreamed of. And before he could stop himself, something inside him said, "Go." The impulse hit, fast and hard. Children don't do calculations. They follow their hearts with reckless courage. He grabbed his backpack, his library card, the $22 he saved from chore money, and slipped out quietly. By the time Iman stepped out of the bathroom, steamed glasses on her nose, towel wrapped around her hair, the apartment was too quiet. "Ben," she called. "Baby, you want pancakes today?" Silence. Her stomach dropped so fast, she felt dizzy. "Ben." Her voice sharpened. She checked the bedroom, the tiny living room, the bathroom twice, then the hallway empty. That was when she saw the apartment door cracked open. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Panic clawed through her throat. She grabbed her phone, dialed the school, dialed the neighbors, ran down the stairs calling his name to the echoing walls. No answer. Then, when she reached the sidewalk, she froze. A bus pulled away at the corner, and through the back window, She glimpsed a small face, her son vanishing into the Saturday morning light. She ran. She screamed his name. But the bus turned the corner and disappeared. Iman stood in the street shaking so hard her knees nearly buckled. A mother's greatest fear wasn't death. It was losing her child to the world. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A news alert. Her eyes widened when she saw the headline, "Live, the Briars Kensington wedding begins at the plaza." "Oh God," she whispered. "Ben, what did you do?" At the plaza, chaos simmered beneath elegance. Security personnel in black suits stood at every entrance. Photographers swarmed, shouting questions, snapping photos. Celebrities arrived in glittering waves. Wealthy families posed for cameras. Corporate giants mingled with senators. Inside, the ballroom glowed like something out of a dream. Gold candelabras, floating candles, cascading floral walls, a grand piano playing an instrumental love song. Jeremy stood near the altar, his tuxedo perfect, his expression strained. He wasn't a man in love. He was a man completing a transaction, a merger with a dress code, a promise made to a father who never forgave weakness. He kept flexing his hand, an unconscious tell that his mind wasn't here. His best man, Richard, whispered, "Relax. Cameras are everywhere. Smile a little." Jeremy forced one, but his eyes kept drifting toward the doors. Tula, in her dressing suite, was a mixture of beauty, nerves, and entitlement. She tightened her veil and muttered to her mother, "He better not embarrass me. Not today." Her mother reassured her with a pat and a whisper. Men like him always fall in line. The music shifted. Guests stood. The ceremony began. The doors opened. But it wasn't Tula who walked in. It was a child. Small. Determined. Alone. Ben marched straight down the aisle as hundreds of people gasped, whispered, and recoiled in confusion. A murmur spread like wildfire. Whose kid is that? Is someone filming a prank? Security Jeremy's face drained of color. Ben stopped in front of the altar, staring up at him with wide, fearless eyes. "You're my dad." The entire room sucked in air at once. Jeremy felt the world tilt. The ballroom blurred. His heartbeat stuttered. What he whispered hoarsely, "You're my dad." Ben repeated louder, pointing at him, "You abandoned me." The guests erupted gasps, whispers. Shock rippled through the room. Jeremy tried to speak, but his throat closed. Who told you?" "You look like me," Ben shot back. "And Mama cries because of you." Jeremy stumbled backward, his breath catching. He recognized that face now. Those eyes. That chin. The anger that matched a reflection he saw in mirrors during his worst days. Before he could kneel, reach out, deny it, or do anything at all. Ben punched him. A 7-year-old fist, small but furious, landed square in his stomach. Jeremy doubled over. The wind knocked clean out of him. Guests screamed. Security rushed forward. Tula, horrified, clutched her wedding gown. "Stop," Jeremy choked out, holding up a hand to keep security from grabbing the child. But Ben was already crying big. Messy tears he tried to blink away. Why didn't you want me? Why didn't you want Mama? Why did you marry her? Jeremy's heart split open, something raw and ancient tearing free inside him. Before he could answer, the ballroom doors burst open. Iman stood in the doorway, breathless, terrified, and beautiful in a way pain had carved. "Ben," she screamed, pushing through rows of stiff, stunned guests. "Baby, come here. Right now." Ben ran to her, sobbing into her waist. Iman wrapped her arms around him, trembling so hard she could barely hold him. Then she lifted her head and met Jeremy's eyes for the first time in 7 years. If heartbreak had a shape, it was the look they exchanged. Jeremy rasped, "Iman." She tightened her grip on Ben, glaring with a fury sharpened by years of survival. "Don't say my name like you didn't destroy me." Tula stormed forward, livid. "Who is this woman, Jeremy? What the hell is happening?" Iman shot back. "Ask him. He knows exactly who I am." The room spun with whispers. Is it true? Is that his son? This wedding is over. Scandal. Huge scandal. Jeremy tried to step closer. "Iman, wait." She recoiled. "Don't come near us." Ben wiped his eyes and shouted at him, "You're a liar." Jeremy froze like he'd been shot. Tula ripped off her veil. "Jeremy, if you don't deny this right now, we're finished." He didn't deny it. He couldn't. His silence was the final nail in the coffin of their engagement. Tula threw her bouquet at him and screamed, "We're done," before running out in dramatic, humiliated fury. Camera flashes ignited like fireworks. Security tried to intervene, but Jeremy barked, "No one touches them." He stepped forward, voice low, raw. "Iman, please, let me talk to him. Let me explain." She shook her head, tears burning but refusing to fall. "Explain, now you want to explain. After throwing me out like trash. After making me raise your son alone." He flinched as if each word was a strike. "Get out of our lives." "Jeremy," she said coldly. Once was enough. She took Ben's hand, and for the second time in his life, Jeremy watched her walk away from him. But this time, she wasn't alone. And this time, he wasn't letting her disappear. By Monday morning, the Briars family empire was in flames. News outlets ran the story nonstop. Billionaire heir's wedding. Crashes into scandal. Secret child revealed. Social media exploded with theories, memes, threats, fan fiction, and debates about whether Jeremy was a heartless playboy or a victim of manipulation. Camden Briar's patriarch, kingmaker, and the coldest man alive was boiling with silent rage. He strode into Jeremy's penthouse like a storm wearing a suit. Jeremy sat on the couch, staring at the paternity test he ordered in a panic right after the wedding. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. His hands trembled each time he remembered the sound of Ben crying. Camden snatched the test results before Jeremy could react. His eyes scanned the page. His jaw tightened. His silence grew heavy. Paternity result: 98%. Probability of fatherhood positive. Camden crushed the paper in his fist. "This is unacceptable," he growled. Jeremy shot to his feet. "He's my son." "No," Camden snapped. "He is a liability, a scandal, a mistake." A mistake, Jeremy repeated, eyes going cold. He's a child. No, Camden corrected, stepping forward until they stood inches apart. He is the weapon she used to destroy this family. Jeremy stiffened. Iman didn't come to the wedding. Ben did. She didn't push that child into the spotlight. He did it himself. Camden scoffed. Children do not create strategy. Women do. Jeremy's jaw clenched. He thought of Iman's face, furious, hurt, unbroken. She didn't look like a schemer. She looked like someone who survived something no human should ever have endured. Leave them alone, Jeremy said quietly. Camden's brows lifted in mocking amusement. You think you get to give orders now? I'm not abandoning my son again. You never had a son, Camden hissed, until the world made one for you. Jeremy inhaled slowly, rage rising like heat in his blood. You don't get to decide who I am anymore. Camden looked at him the way one might examine a malfunctioning machine. If you go near that woman or the boy, this family will bury you, financially, politically, socially. Jeremy lifted his chin. Then bury me. The room froze. For the first time in his life, Jeremy stood against the empire that raised him. Camden's voice dropped into a low, venomous whisper. You are weak. No, Jeremy said, stepping back, voice steady. I was weak. When I threw her out, when I refused to face the truth, when I let you dictate every choice I made. He exhaled slowly, accepting the cost of his words. That ends now. Camden stared at him with a cold, calculating fury. You will regret this. I already regret everything you taught me. Jeremy replied. Camden left with the silence of a man plotting destruction. Meanwhile, across the city, Iman sat at the public clinic holding Ben's hand while he completed a checkup mandated after a missing child report. She had barely slept. Tears kept sneaking up on her when she least expected them. The doctor stepped out with Ben's chart. He's fine, Ms. Turner. A little underweight. Mild anemia. But nothing we can't manage. Iman nodded shakily. Thank you. Ben swung his feet from the exam table. Mama, is Dad in trouble? She froze. She wasn't ready for this. Baby, she said, kneeling in front of him. You can't run away like that ever again. You scared me. I just wanted to see him. Ben whispered, just once. She pulled him close. I know, but you nearly got hurt. He sniffled. Sorry, Mama. And she forgave him instantly, not because she was soft, but because he was her whole world. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. I'm outside. Please don't panic. I just want to talk. Jay. Her breath caught. He found them. Her pulse hammered as she looked at Ben. Stay here with the nurse for a minute. Is it him? Ben whispered. She didn't answer. She stepped out into the hallway, then outside the clinic doors. Jeremy stood there in the cold wind, hair tousled, tie loose, eyes red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept. He looked nothing like the powerful CEO she once knew. He looked human, fragile, haunted. Iman. His voice cracked on her name. She didn't soften. She didn't move. What are you doing here? I needed to see you. You already saw enough at the wedding, she said sharply. He flinched. I deserved that. She exhaled. but it didn't calm the storm inside her. "What do you want from us?" He swallowed hard, a chance to make things right. She laughed, but it came out jagged, broken. 7 years too late. "I know," he whispered. "But when I saw him, when he said I was his father, it ripped me open. I've done unforgivable things, but I want to try. I want to be in his life, and mine." Her voice slipped before she could stop it. Jeremy's breath hitched. "I ruined us, and if you hate me forever, I'll take that. But please, don't punish him for my sins." Her eyes burned. "You punished him first." Jeremy's face crumbled. "I know," he whispered, "and I will never forgive myself." Silence stretched between them, heavy, suffocating. Iman finally whispered, "He's inside." Jeremy nodded, then hesitated. "May I see him?" She hesitated. Then she remembered the look on Ben's face when he saw that wedding photo. She nodded once. Jeremy stepped inside. Ben looked up and froze. For a moment, they stared at each other. Then Jeremy went down on one knee, voice breaking. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry for everything. You don't have to forgive me. But I'm your dad, and I'm never running again." Ben blinked, then launched himself into Jeremy's arms. Iman turned away, hiding the tears that spilled down her cheeks. Jeremy held his son tight, silently making promises he planned to spend the rest of his life keeping. But outside the clinic window, Camden Briars sat in a black car, watching them with cold eyes. A family had reunited, and a war had just begun. Jeremy had always believed he understood pressure. He was raised inside it, polished by it, weaponized by it. But nothing prepared him for the pressure of sitting across from his son in the small living room of Iman's apartment, trying to act normal while his whole world rearranged itself. Ben sat on the floor with a box of building blocks, constructing something between a rocket ship and a skyscraper. He didn't look up often, but each time he did, it was as if he were studying Jeremy, trying to memorize the father he'd yearned for, but never met. Iman sat on the opposite couch, arms crossed, posture stiff. She didn't speak unless necessary, and each silence between them carried 7 years' worth of wounds. Jeremy cleared his throat. "Do you want help with that?" Ben shrugged without looking up. "It's supposed to be a space elevator, but this piece keeps falling." "May I see?" Ben hesitated, then pushed the half-built structure toward him. Jeremy knelt and studied the unstable section. "Try shifting the support beam here. It'll hold the weight better." Ben did, and the tower steadied. His eyes widened. "Hey, that worked." A flicker of pride warmed Jeremy's chest. "You're smart, really smart." "I know," Ben said simply. "Mama says I have a big brain." Then he added quietly, "Like you." Iman's expression tightened. Jeremy tried to catch her eyes, but she looked away. She wasn't ready. He had earned that. Moments passed. Ben happily continued building, while Jeremy sat there feeling the weight of every mistake he had ever made. Finally, Iman stood. "It's time for homework." Ben nodded, gathered his things, and went to the bedroom. When the door clicked shut, the air turned sharp. Iman spoke first. "I don't know what you're planning, But you don't get to appear one day and disrupt our lives again. Jeremy nodded. I understand. Do you? She shot back. Do you understand that for years? He wondered what was wrong with him. If he wasn't good enough. If he wasn't wanted. Jeremy swallowed hard. I think about that every second. Thinking isn't enough. I want to be present. I want to support both of you. Iman laughed bitterly. Support. We've survived without you. I know. And I'm not trying to take credit for anything. I just want a chance. A chance. She repeated slowly, the word tasting like betrayal in her mouth. You had your chance 7 years ago. Jeremy's voice dropped, low and raw. I was wrong. I was scared. And I let the wrong voices control everything. That's not an excuse. No. It's the truth. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Jeremy saw the exhaustion in her shoulders, the shadows under her eyes, the pain layered over resilience. He saw a woman who had carried a weight meant for two. I want to help, he whispered. Iman didn't answer. She walked him to the door, keeping distance. He paused. May I see him again? She hesitated. I'll think about it. And Jeremy walked away, knowing that for the first time in his life, everything he wanted couldn't be bought, negotiated, or demanded. It had to be earned. 3 days later, trouble came from directions none of them expected. At work, Jeremy was ambushed by a horde of reporters. Questions came like bullets. Is it true the wedding is officially canceled? Are you stepping down as CEO? Are you acknowledging the child? Is the mother seeking compensation? He pushed through without answering. But by the time he reached his office, he found Camden waiting. The tension thickened instantly. You embarrassed this family, Camden said calmly, a calm more dangerous than fury. But it's not too late to fix this. No. Jeremy responded immediately. I know what fixing looks like to you. Then listen, Camden said, sliding a document across the desk. A settlement agreement. Generous, clean, discreet. You'll never hear from them again. Jeremy stared at the folder like it contained poison, which, in a way, it did. You want me to pay her off. I want you to protect yourself. Camden corrected. And this company. Jeremy closed the folder without reading it. I'm not doing that. You will. Camden growled. You were not raised to throw away your life for a woman who, say her name, Jeremy snapped. I dare you. Camden's lip curled. For a woman who trapped you with a child, she knew you were too smart to claim. Jeremy's blood ran cold. Get out, he said. You need to think clearly. I am thinking clearly. Get out before you say something you can't take back. Camden stared at him for a long, heavy moment, eyes burning with betrayal and disbelief. You're making a mistake, he warned before leaving the office with footsteps sharp as gunshots. Jeremy sagged into his chair. A mistake, he thought, was what he did 7 years ago. This was the first real choice he'd made. Meanwhile, across the city, Iman was at the grocery store with Ben, trying to return to normal. But normal was impossible now. Everything felt unsettled, like the world was holding its breath. At the checkout, Ben tugged her sleeve. Mama, can Dad come to my school play? Iman stilled. Her heart squeezed. Baby, We haven't figured things out yet. But he wants to be with me now. I know. So why can't he? Iman blinked hard. It's complicated. Ben scowled. Everything is always complicated. Iman knelt and touched his cheek. I'm trying to protect you. But what if he protects me too? The question knocked the breath from her lungs. When they arrived home, a man in a black suit was standing near their building, pretending to smoke. Iman noticed the expensive watch, the stiff posture, the discreet earpiece. She grabbed Ben's hand and hurried inside. She felt watched, hunted, and she knew exactly who was behind it. The dynasty she had stayed far away from for 7 years was starting to close in. 3 weeks after the disastrous wedding, life should have been settling. Instead, everything spiraled. Jeremy had been visiting regularly now, short, careful moments arranged under Iman's strict terms. He never overstepped, never pushed, never raised his voice. He simply showed up. Sometimes that's all a child needs. But Camden didn't back down, and the pressure around them tightened like a loop of wire. That night, rain hammered against the clinic windows with relentless force. The storm outside mirrored the one inside Iman's soul. Ben lay in bed, skin flushed, breath rapid, tiny coughs scraping his chest. He had been fine that morning, laughing, running, showing Jeremy a drawing he made. By afternoon, he was shivering. By evening, he could barely sit up. Iman was terrified. She dialed the clinic's after-hours nurse again. His fever's not breaking. It's climbing. Try another cool compress. If it reaches 103, bring him in. It's already 102.4. Then bring him immediately. Iman hung up and grabbed her keys. Ben whimpered. Mama, it hurts. I know. Baby, I'm right here. She lifted him, but he felt heavier than usual weakness, turning him limp. Her phone buzzed. Jeremy, I'm outside. I brought the vitamins you said he liked. Her heart jolted. She rushed to the window and saw him standing under the flickering streetlight, hair damp from the rain. She opened the door, panic written all over her face. He's sick. We need to go to the clinic now. Jeremy stepped inside instantly. What happened? He came home from school fine, but he can't breathe right. His fever's too high. Let me carry him, Jeremy said, voice steady. Iman hesitated, then nodded. Jeremy scooped Ben up gently. I've got you, little man. Ben rested against his shoulder, too weak to protest. They rushed through the rain. Jeremy held Ben close, shielding him with his jacket, as if protecting him were the most natural thing in the world. At the clinic, nurses whisked Ben into an exam room. Iman hovered at the doorway, shaking. Jeremy stood beside her, but kept enough distance to respect her space. Minutes crawled by like hours. Ben's breathing grew shallow. His little chest heaved. When the doctor entered, his expression was grave. He's developed acute pneumonia. We need to give him oxygen and start treatment immediately. Iman grabbed the edge of the bed to stay upright. Is he going to be okay? We're doing everything we can. And then Ben whispered, barely audible, Daddy. Jeremy froze. His eyes filled instantly raw, unrestrained emotion flooding his features. He moved to Ben's side. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Iman looked away because the sight of Jeremy holding their son's hand broke something open inside her, something she had spent years building walls around. Hours passed. Jeremy never sat. He stood beside Ben's bed, gently brushing back the boy's curls, whispering encouragement, holding the oxygen mask when Ben's fingers were too weak. At one point, Iman stepped out to breathe, gripping the hallway railing so hard her knuckles whitened. Jeremy followed. He stood beside her silently. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them was heavy with what they'd been through, what they'd never said. Finally, Jeremy whispered, "I'm so sorry." Iman shook her head, tears spilling despite her strength. "You shouldn't have been here." "But I am. You weren't there 7 years ago." "I know. You don't get to erase that." "I'm not trying to erase anything." He turned to her, eyes shimmering with regret. "I'm trying to start where I should have started with him. With you." Iman choked out a breath. "I can't trust you. I'll earn it. You can't fix everything. I can try." She covered her face, trying to hide the trembling. "If anything happens to him, nothing will happen," Jeremy said, voice firm. "He's strong, like you." She looked up, really looked at him. Gone was the polished CEO. Gone was the cold man she once knew. The person standing here now was stripped bare, humbled, terrified, and desperate to change. "Why now?" she whispered. "Because I've been dead for years without realizing it," he said. "And when he looked at me at that wedding, it brought me back to life." Iman's breath caught. "But Camden," she began. Jeremy stiffened. "Leave my father to me. You don't understand the danger. I understand enough. He won't touch you or Ben. Not while I'm breathing." His voice carried a new weight, a vow cut from steel. But danger was already close, because outside the clinic's glass doors, the black sedan returned, the same one from before. Camden's men waited, watching, waiting for orders. Inside, Jeremy took Iman's hand carefully, gently, and led her back to their son's bedside. Ben slept peacefully now, breathing steadier, thanks to the oxygen mask. Iman touched his cheek tenderly. Jeremy stood beside her, shoulders brushing, and for the first time since the day she told him she was pregnant, they stood together, a family not whole, not healed, but fighting. Yet the night wasn't over, and the war was just beginning. The storm eased by dawn, but inside the clinic, everything remained suspended in fragile stillness. Machines beeped softly, nurses whispered, and in a dim room at the end of the hall, Jeremy and Iman sat beside their sleeping son, united by fear, guilt, and something else neither dared name. Ben's fever had broken hours earlier. His breathing was steadier now, chest rising and falling beneath the thin blanket. It was the first moment of peace they'd had since rushing through those clinic doors. Iman brushed a curl off her son's forehead. "Thank God." Jeremy exhaled shakily. "I thought—" He stopped, his voice cracking. "I thought we might lose him." Iman didn't answer. She kept her eyes on Ben, afraid that if she looked at Jeremy, everything she'd kept locked inside would spill out. Jeremy moved to sit, sinking into the plastic chair beside her. Exhaustion carved shadows under his eyes. But there was something else there, to clarity. After a long silence, he spoke softly. I shouldn't be here. Should I? Iman didn't move. You're here. Only because he needed me. No, she said, surprising herself. No, you chose to come. He blinked, startled by the acknowledgement. Her voice softened. You showed up this time. Jeremy swallowed hard. I won't disappear again. Iman wanted to believe him so badly, it scared her. But she had learned the hard way that sincerity could be temporary. People could love you deeply one moment and abandon you the next. Still, the way he held their son all night, the way he whispered to him through pain and fever, it dug under her armor. She stood and stretched her stiff limbs. I'm going to get some fresh air. Jeremy rose too. I'll come with you. They stepped into the hallway. It was empty, quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. As they passed the window overlooking the parking lot, Jeremy paused sharply. Iman. Look. She turned. The black sedan was still there. Same tinted windows. Same engine idling. Same men sitting inside. Iman's stomach dropped. I told you your father wouldn't leave us alone. Jeremy's jaw clenched. This ends today. He marched toward the clinic doors. Iman grabbed his arm. Where are you going to tell them to back off? They're not here to negotiate. I don't care. His voice was low, dangerous. Iman stepped in front of him. Listen to me. Your father doesn't threaten, he destroys. He'll ruin your name, your company, your entire life if you go against him. I already did, and look what it brought to our doorstep. Jeremy paused, breathing hard. Her hand remained on his arm, a small, warm anchor, pulling him back from the edge. I'm not scared of him anymore, he said. You should be. I'm scared of losing you too, Jeremy whispered. That's the only thing that matters now. Iman froze. He realized what he'd said too late. He didn't take it back. Before she could respond, the clinic doors slid open. Two men from the sedan entered sleek suits, hard expressions. Camden's security. Jeremy positioned himself slightly in front of Iman without thinking. One of the men spoke. Mr. Briers, your father requests your presence immediately. Jeremy stared them down. Tell him I said no. The man didn't flinch. He insists. Not my problem. The man lowered his voice. He also insists we bring the woman and the child. Iman inhaled sharply. Jeremy stepped forward. His voice a deadly whisper. If you touch them, I'll make sure you never walk again. The man hesitated. He knew Jeremy wasn't bluffing. Rumors always circulated about the polished CEO who could break jaws as easily as he broke deals. Stories whispered by college classmates who once crossed him. They backed away. For now. But the message was clear. Camden wouldn't stop. When the men left the clinic, Jeremy exhaled shakily. This is my fault. Don't, Iman said. Don't blame yourself for his cruelty. But he wasn't listening. Guilt carved itself deep into his expression. She touched his wrist gently. Jeremy, look at me. He did. This isn't about what happened 7 years ago anymore. This is about choosing who you're going to be now. The words hit him like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Before he could speak, the doctor appeared. He's stable enough to go home in a few hours. Keep him on bed rest and bring him in if his fever rises. Iman nodded gratefully. Jeremy closed his eyes in relief. Back in the room, they watched over Ben until morning light soaked the walls in gold. At one point, Ben stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Daddy," he whispered. Jeremy leaned in. "I'm right here." Ben's small hand reached out to him. Jeremy took it, squeezing gently. Iman watched the two halves of her heart finally fitting together and felt a rush of emotion she couldn't hold back anymore. Something was changing, something she couldn't stop, something she wasn't sure she wanted to stop. 2 days later, Jeremy arrived at Iman's apartment with groceries, a humidifier, children's vitamins, and a quiet, nervous energy. She let him in without a word. They spent the afternoon taking turns reading Ben's homework questions, watching movies, and laughing softly when he insisted Jeremy stay to play board games. At night, when Ben fell asleep on Jeremy's chest, Iman stood in the doorway, watching. The man who once turned his back now held their son as if the boy were the most precious thing he'd ever touched. When Jeremy looked up and saw her, something unspoken passed between them, a fragile thread pulling tighter. Later, as Jeremy prepared to leave, he paused by the door. "May I come back tomorrow?" Iman wanted to say no, but she couldn't. "Yes," she whispered. He smiled, small, genuine. And for the first time in years, Iman felt hope fighting its way through the scars. But she didn't know what Camden Briars was planning behind closed doors, or how far he would go to keep them apart, and the cost would be a storm none of them saw coming. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of slow mornings, evening visits, shared meals, quiet laughter, and careful steps around wounds still tender. 3 weeks of Jeremy learning things he never knew about his son, the way Ben hated syrup touching his pancakes, how he read science books meant for kids twice his age, how he whispered facts about galaxies when he thought no one was listening. But most of all, Jeremy learned how fiercely this little boy loved, and how devastatingly easy it was to fall in love with him right back. Iman tried to keep her boundaries sharp, but they softened little by little. Watching Jeremy show up consistently, reliably, gently, was unraveling the tight knot she had lived with for years. She fought it, but she felt it. There were evenings when Jeremy stayed late helping Ben build elaborate robot cities out of boxes. Nights when they cooked dinner together, brushing fingertips by accident, stealing glances laden with history and possibility. Afternoons when Jeremy fixed her sink or carried groceries up the stairs, insisting she didn't need to strain herself while working 3 jobs. It was dangerously domestic, painfully normal. A kind of life she once begged the universe for, before the universe laughed in her face. Now it was offering it back, in pieces she didn't know how to hold. Still, there were moments quiet, piercing moments when she caught Jeremy staring at her like she was the one thing he'd been starving for, and she'd look away, not ready to let him back in, terrified of what would happen if she did. But something was shifting, growing, healing. And Camden Briars knew it. In his glass tower, overlooking the city, Camden sat behind his massive desk as reports piled before him. "His visits are regular?" Camden asked his head of security. "Yes, sir. Nearly daily. The child and the woman occupy most of his time now." "Pathetic," Camden muttered, tapping a finger on the desk. "He thinks this makes him noble. It makes him weak." The security chief hesitated. Should we intervene? Camden's lips twisted. Not yet. Let him dig himself deeper. Then we'll rip the ground out from beneath him. His gaze hardened. He thinks he can choose them over me, over this family. He has no idea who he's up against. Trouble began subtly. A sudden random inspection at Iman's workplace. Her hours mysteriously reduced. Her pay delayed. Her landlord receiving an anonymous complaint, questioning her lease agreement. Grocery deliveries disappearing from her doorstep. Little inconveniences at first, but they increased quickly. One afternoon, as she walked home, a woman in a sleek coat approached her. Ms. Turner. The woman handed her a cream envelope. From the Briars family. Iman froze. Inside was a letter formal. Cold, threatening legal action for defamation, emotional distress, and disruption of a public event. They demanded she cease all contact with Jeremy. They threatened custody disputes. They threatened to challenge her parental rights. Her hands shook as she read. When she arrived home, Jeremy was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor with Ben, helping him with math homework. He looked up, smiling until he saw her face. What happened? He asked. Rising quickly, Iman tossed the envelope toward him. Your father happened. Jeremy opened it. His expression darkened. No. No. He didn't. Yes. He did. And he won't stop. I'll handle this. That letter says otherwise. He doesn't speak for me. He doesn't have to. He controls everything. Not anymore. Iman shook her head. Jeremy, you don't understand. He's targeting my job, my home, my life. Jeremy stepped closer. I won't let him hurt you. You already let him hurt me, she said softly. 7 years ago. Jeremy closed his eyes like the words were knives. Iman softened, but only a little. I'm not saying you're him, but he is your father, and that carries power I can't fight. You don't have to fight him, Jeremy said. I will. How she whispered. What can you possibly do against a man like that? Jeremy opened his mouth, then shut it, because the truth was, he didn't know yet. But he knew one thing: he would burn every bridge he had, every dollar he owned, every piece of the Briars empire, if it meant protecting the two people who meant everything to him. Iman touched the back of the couch, grounding herself. I can't do this again, she whispered. I can't survive another heartbreak, another war, another collapse. Jeremy stepped forward slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. Iman. She didn't pull away, but she didn't look at him either. I'm not asking you to trust me all at once, Jeremy said. Just let me try. She finally met his eyes. Deep, broken, hopeful eyes. Jeremy, I don't know how. Then let me show you how. Silence stretched long and trembling. Then a soft voice came from behind them. You're fighting because of me, Ben whispered, eyes wide with guilt. Both parents turned instantly. Jeremy knelt and pulled him close. No, buddy, we're fighting for you. Iman wrapped her arms around both of them, heart pounding as she felt her son between them, warm, alive, theirs. Ben whispered, We're a family now, right? The question hung in the air like a plea. Jeremy looked at Iman. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Not yet. but the answer lived in her eyes, shaken, terrified, undeniable. And in that fragile, desperate moment, they all held on to each other as if the world outside the apartment couldn't touch them. But it would, because Camden Briars had just begun, and the next move would break everything open. It happened in December, cold enough that the air sharpened every breath, soft enough that the city felt quieter beneath its coat of early snow. Iman walked home from a double shift, the weight of Camden's threats pressing into her shoulders like iron. She carried groceries in one hand, exhaustion in the other, and fear braided tightly into her spine. When she reached her door, she paused. The hallway was dim, silent, but someone was sitting on the floor beside her, apartment, legs bent, elbows on knees, head bowed. Jeremy. He looked nothing like the billionaire CEO she met years ago. His hair was messy, his coat dusted with snow, his hands trembling slightly from the cold. He rose when he saw her, eyes full of something raw and almost pleading. "Iman, why are you here?" she whispered. "Because I have to say something, and if I don't say it now, I might never get the chance." She hesitated. "Ben is asleep. I'm not here for him tonight," he replied softly. "I'm here for you." Her heart stumbled, but she hid it well. "Jeremy, please, just hear me." Something in his voice, fragile, desperate, honest, opened a door inside her she had kept shut for 7 years. She sighed, unlocking her apartment and letting him inside. The interior glowed with the warm light of a single lamp. A Christmas tree made of cardboard boxes and string lights stood in the corner, decorated entirely by Ben's drawings. Their tiny home was humble, worn, but safe. Jeremy stood in the middle of it, overwhelmed. "I didn't know," he murmured. "You weren't supposed to," she said, hanging up her coat. "I didn't want you to feel obligated. I feel obligated now." "No, you feel responsible." She shook her head. "That's not love. Jeremy, that's guilt." He inhaled sharply. "You think guilt is why I keep coming back. I don't know why you're doing anything," she said. "7 years ago you made your feelings very clear, and I regret that every day." His voice cracked. "You and Ben paid for my cowardice." She closed her eyes, letting the memory wash and sting before pushing it aside. "Then say what you came to say." Jeremy nodded, breath shaking as he gathered words that had lived in his chest too long. 7 years ago, when you came into my office with that test, I panicked. I wasn't ready to be a father. I wasn't ready for anyone to see the parts of me I'd kept hidden. I'd spent my whole life under my father's thumb, hearing him say over and over that love was weakness, that attachment was poison, that vulnerability was a death sentence. Iman didn't interrupt. She listened, arms wrapped around herself. "And then you," Jeremy said softly. "You walked into my life and made me feel everything he trained me to bury. You made me want things that terrified me. A family, a future, something real, and I didn't know how to hold it." Her throat tightened. Jeremy stepped closer, voice trembling. "I should have protected you. I should have protected our child. Instead, I did the one thing he taught me. I ran. I hurt you. I betrayed everything we built." Iman swallowed hard. And now you want forgiveness. No, he whispered. I want the chance to earn it. Her heart cracked open the tiniest bit. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I met with my attorneys today. Fear shot through her. Are you taking us to court? No, he said quickly. I'm cutting ties with him. Her eyes widened. What, I'm stepping down from Breyer's Industries? Iman stared at him as if he had said he planned to jump off a building. Jeremy, that company is your legacy. No, he said quietly. My father's legacy is control, fear, power at the cost of everything human. I don't want that. I don't need that. His eyes softened. I want a different life. One I choose. Emotions swelled in her chest, too big to contain. He took a breath. I'm starting a new company. Something smaller, something sustainable, something I can be proud of, something Ben can be proud of one day. Iman was silent. Jeremy stepped closer until they were inches apart. I want you to know this. I don't choose him. I choose you. I choose our son. I choose the life we could build together. If you'll let me. Her breath caught. Jeremy. He blinked rapidly, tears gathering but not falling. I'm not asking you for an answer tonight. I just needed you to know that I'm fighting this time. For both of you. For a moment. The world held its breath. Iman's eyes softened, but fear still lived in the shadows of her heart. She whispered, I don't know if I can trust you. I know. I don't know if I can love you again. His voice broke. I know. And I don't know if I can forgive you. He nodded slowly. Then let me earn all of it. One day at a time. The quiet between them grew thick with unsaid things, pain, longing, hope, loss, love that never died, but had been buried too deep. Iman finally reached out and touched his hand. Just a touch. But it was enough to unravel him. He leaned forward and rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed, breath trembling. I miss you, he whispered. Every version of you. She didn't pull away, but she didn't kiss him either. Her voice was barely a breath. Go home. Jeremy? He nodded, stepping back slowly. Good night. Iman. When he left, she closed the door with shaking hands, leaning against it as tears slipped silently down her cheeks. She wasn't crying because of the past. She was crying because, for the first time in years, she believed he meant every word, and that terrified her more than anything Camden Breyers ever could. 8 months changed everything. The first change happened quietly, paperwork filed, signatures notarized, bank accounts separated. Jeremy walked away from the company bearing his name and left behind a world built on fear. The headlines were merciless. Breyers heir rejects fortune family rift. Deepens Camden Breyers calls son's actions. Irrational. Emotional. Weak. Jeremy Breyers resigns amid scandal and power struggle. But Jeremy didn't care. He spent his mornings building his new company from scratch, a renewable energy startup focused on underserved communities. He spent his afternoons visiting Ben's school, helping with science projects, tying shoelaces, reading bedtime stories. He spent his evenings at Iman's kitchen table, helping her study business courses she signed up for, cooking dinner together, teasing each other about old habits, slowly rebuilding something fragile and precious between them. There were setbacks, fights, fears, days when Iman pushed him away, nights when old wounds surfaced. But every time she expected him to run, he stayed. One warm August afternoon, the three of them walked through the neighborhood park. Ben ran ahead, chasing bubbles drifting through the air from a street vendor. His laughter rang bright and full. Jeremy watched him, hands in his pockets. He grows fast. He does, Iman said softly. They walked in silence for a moment before Jeremy glanced at her. You've been distant today. Did something happen? Iman hesitated. Your father reached out. Jeremy's jaw tightened. What did he say? He wants to meet. Says he wants to talk about Ben. A storm flickered across Jeremy's expression. It's a trap. I know. Don't go. I wasn't planning to. Relief washed over him. Good. But then she said, what if he doesn't stop? What if he takes you to court? What if he tries to hurt you through us? Jeremy turned toward her fully. He can't hurt me anymore. He's still your father. No, Jeremy said quietly. He's just a man who lost the one thing he thought he owned. Iman studied his face, the steadiness in his eyes, the quiet strength in his posture. He wasn't the boy who destroyed her. He wasn't the man she feared. He was someone new, someone he chose to become. Jeremy, she whispered. Do you ever regret leaving all of that behind? He took her hand. Not for 1 second. She swallowed hard, even if it costs you everything. He squeezed her hand gently. It gave me everything. Her eyes softened in a way she hadn't allowed them to in years. Mom. Dad Ben shouted from the field. Come see. Iman froze. Jeremy froze. Dad. The word lingered in the air like a blessing. Iman blinked rapidly. Did he just... Jeremy's voice cracked. Yeah. Ben waved both arms wildly. Come on. They walked toward him, side by side, hearts full. Months later, on a quiet fall morning, Jeremy invited Iman to his new office, a modest renovated space adorned with Ben's drawings and inspirational quotes scribbled on whiteboards. He paced nervously as she entered. You okay? She asked. No, he admitted. I'm terrified. Her brow furrowed. Of what? He motioned her closer. On the desk sat a small velvet box. Iman's breath hitched. Jeremy. He shook his head quickly. Before you jump to conclusions, it's not a proposal. Relief and confusion mixed in her eyes. He opened the box. Inside, 2 simple rings, matching, elegant, understated. These are promise rings, he said. Not marriage, not yet. This is me saying, I choose this family. I choose you. Not someday. Now. Iman stared at him, breath trembling. He continued, voice steady. I promise to love you the way you deserved to be loved back then. I promise to show up every day. I promise to protect our son. And I promise to earn your heart, not steal it or demand it earn it. Tears filled her eyes. Jeremy. He held out the ring. I don't need forever yet. I just need a chance. Iman reached for the ring slowly, as if touching something sacred. Okay, she whispered. You have it. He let out a breath that sounded like victory and relief, intertwined. They exchanged rings, neither rushing, savoring the moment their lives realigned. Then Jeremy leaned in, hesitant but hopeful. "May I?" Iman smiled softly. "Yes." Their lips met slow, tender, full of years of ache and longing, finally given release. A kiss not of passion, but of truth. A kiss that rebuilt everything. 2 weeks later, surrounded by friends and a handful of loved ones, they exchanged vows at a small ceremony in the park where Ben had first called them a family. No extravagance, no photographers, no dynasty. Just 3 people choosing each other. Iman wore a simple ivory dress. Jeremy wore a navy suit. Ben stood between them proudly, holding the rings he helped design. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Ben shouted louder than anyone, "We're really a family now." Jeremy lifted him into his arms, smiling wider than he ever had. Iman laughed through tears, and they wrapped their arms around each other warm, close, unstoppable. No scandals, no fear, no dynasty shadows. Just love. Chosen, earned, fought for. And as the sun dipped behind the trees, painting the sky gold, they walked forward, hands intertwined, hearts aligned into the life they built together. A life finally free, a life finally theirs.